It's wintertime in the Canadian Rockies. It's supposed to get down to minus 20 degrees Celsius tonight, and my pack weighs under 16 pounds. It's gonna be interesting to see whether the shelter that I brought with me is robust enough and the sleep system warm enough to keep me warm and comfortable tonight. But first, I have to get up to my beautiful Mountain Lake campsite. I've been to this spot before. It took me 2 hours to get up there last time, and I'm curious to see whether the lighter pack and the different ski setup that I'm gonna be using is gonna help me get up there faster today. I'm reminiscing as I head up the trail here about the last time I was up at Taylor Lake. It snowed over a foot on top of me, tons of snow. It's not supposed to snow that much tonight. There's forecasts for no snow, but you never know in the mountains. And in case you didn't realize, I'm using pretty much all ultralight gear. Ultralight pack, I'm using an ultralight tent that really isn't designed for wintertime, but I think is gonna perform pretty well. We're gonna see how that goes, as well as an ultralight sleep system. I'm pretty confident that I'm prepared for the conditions that we're gonna see tonight, but if things are much different than I've expected, then it could be an interesting night up there and potentially very uncomfortable. I'm using the Black Diamond Glide Light Trekker skis to head up the trail here, and I've realized something really interesting about these skis, but before I share that with you, I wanna thank Garage Growing Gear, my favorite ultralight store, for sponsoring today's video. If you want the coolest ultralight and best backpacking gear all in one shop, then Garage Growing Gear is the place to check out. Over the last year, Garage Growing Gear has been bringing in a ton of new products and now carry almost all of my favorite backpacking gear. And one of my favorite things to do with the Garage Growing Gear website is to check out the new items tab on their storefront. You can go there and see what new items they've been bringing in. A lot of really cool and innovative products. I go there almost weekly. That's how often they're bringing in new items, and I find so many cool things there. Stick around to the end of this video where I'll link to a video I did where I go over a bunch of innovative and cool gear that I discovered over at Garage Growing Gear. Gear items that frankly surprised me. I didn't think that they would be as good as they are, and some of them become for some of my favorite gear items of 2021. Go check out Garage Growing Gear at the link I'll put in the description. But now to tell you what I found interesting about the Black Diamond Trekker skis. Normally on things like snowshoes, as I go up hills, I like to have a heel riser that stops my heel and makes it easier to go up the hills, but I haven't found that to be an issue with the Glide Light skis so far, and that's been kind of surprising for me because I really like having that heel riser on snowshoes. I'll be doing a full review of these skis and I'll post a link to that in the video description as well, but we're probably getting pretty close to the campsite now, and I'm really curious to see how long this trip up to the lake has taken me. Made it, Taylor Lake. That took a little bit under 2 hours, so faster than last time. I think the lightweight pack definitely helped. I also realized that I did this trip just after the holidays last year, so I might have been carrying a couple extra pounds not only in my pack. This is where I'm gonna set up camp. Nice spot with lots of snow. I know that there's a picnic table that I can use right underneath all that snow right there, and some pretty good views. If you didn't pick up on it, this is an ultralight trip. Like I said, my pack weighs under 16 pounds. That includes all of my food, my water, my sleep system, my camp clothing, and my shelter. It is a trekking pole tent, so it's gonna be tough to get it really anchored into the snow, but I have a couple tricks up my sleeve, so I'm gonna share those with you. But first things first, I need to get a really solid base made in the snow to set the tent up on. And don't worry, I am gonna share with you the other ultralight gear that I'm gonna be using for this winter camping trip, my sleep system, my cook system, some camp clothes. And like I said, it's supposed to be getting down to -20 tonight, if not colder, and potentially some snow. So it's gonna be a good test of all this gear that I brought with me. So I brought the Z-Packs Ultraplex tent with me. Like I said, it's a trekking pole tent. I think it'll actually do pretty good in the snow. It is a one-person tent, so I'm not gonna have a ton of space in there. In order to anchor out the guy lines, I brought 3 snow stakes. So those will be on the guy out points that I don't really care how well anchored they are, but then for the spots that need to be really well anchored, I'm gonna be using dead man anchors. Dead man anchors are by far the best and most solid way to anchor the tent into the snow. And I have kind of what I think is an innovative way of doing it that makes takedown a lot easier as well as installations. I'm gonna get those dead man anchors set up as the snow kind of settles in and sinters. And then by the time I wanna set the tent up, they should be nice and locked in. For my kind of custom dead man anchor, what you need is a stick, a nice kind of sturdy long one, just over a foot long. And then you have a string with 2 loops on either end and then a carabiner. And first thing you want to do, figure out where your guy lines are from your tent. And then from about 1.5 to 2 feet away, dig a trench in the snow. And you want that trench to be about 1 foot deep. 1 foot, 6 inches to 1 foot deep, and then the width of the stick that you brought with you. So you're gonna be putting that stick into the trench. And then put a T in that snow, it doesn't need to be super wide or quite as deep, towards your guy line that you're gonna be anchoring for the tent. And then what you wanna do, you take your stick, you put it through the loop that you have here with your carabiner, rest that inside the trench, and then attach your guy line to the carabiner. You then want to fill back in this trench that you just made and pack it down nice and hard. After about 20-30 minutes, that snow is going to turn rock hard and then really anchor that stick into the ground. And then make sure that the whole carabiner is sticking out of the snow, because what's really nice about this system is that tomorrow morning, when I want to take this down, I don't need to dig the stick out. The stick's disposable at this point. I can just unclip one of the loops from the carabiner and then pull the whole string out, and then off I go. And then the name of the game for my cook system is titanium. I have an Evernew titanium 1 liter pot. 1 liter is kind of the minimum I find in wintertime because you need to melt snow, and snow takes up a lot more volume than water. And then I saw how light my pack was this morning when I was getting ready to go, so I threw in my titanium mug. This is a double wall mug, so it keeps the contents nice and warm, and I'm gonna have a coffee tomorrow. And then the ultralight stove of choice for wintertime for me is the Fire Maple Blade 2. This is gonna be the coldest trip that I've taken it on so far, so we'll see how it does. I have a pretty yummy meal, and I have it stored in this reflective koozie in order to keep it warm as it rehydrates. This is actually a company based out of Calgary, so I'm really excited to try out their meals. They haven't even really launched yet. You can just get them in a couple spots. That's Wild Mountain Eat. This is a coconut lentil curry. It sounds delicious. Really looking forward to trying it out. Lentils and me don't sit super well, so I made sure to bring it out on a solo trip. So I think the snow is sintered enough and nice and solid, especially those 2 back anchor points. So I'm gonna get the trekking pole up the middle of the tent and then get the front guy line set up into a dead man anchor. I'm not gonna really pull too tight right now. I wanna just kind of get everything lined up and make sure that the front guy line is nice and lined up well, and then I'm gonna go around and tighten up all the guy lines a little bit better. And this system's gonna work just as well for an expensive tent like the Z-Packs Ultraplex and the Lanshan 1 Pro budget tent. That's my favorite budget alternative to the Z-Packs Ultraplex. Then I'm gonna use the snow stakes at the 2 front corners and then the back middle as well. Not the nicest pitch, but it'll get the job done tonight. I'm gonna get some snow melted in my pot here so I have some boiling water to put into my dehydrated meal. Then at the same time, I'm gonna get my sleep system set up inside the tent, as well as put on some of my warmer clothes because it's starting to get really cold really quick. Well, that didn't go as planned. Ideally, I would have kept the canister inside of my jacket, keeping it nice and warm. I wouldn't have had that issue with lighting it, and I wouldn't have caught on fire. See a little bit of fuel that leaked out there, the liquid fuel. That's what's catching every once in a while here. But yeah, not a huge problem. Able to kind of just blow that liquid out. I got a little bit of a singe on my gloves, but nothing major. So we're gonna get this water boiling and get the sleep system all set up. So for my sleep system, I brought the tried and true Trekology 2.0 pillow here. And then for my sleeping pad, I'm using the Neotherm X-Lite. And then you saw the switchback foam mat that I had there. So combined, those give me an R value of 6.2, which should be good for wintertime and sleeping on snow. And then I am using a dual quilt system. So I have a 20-degree Fahrenheit down quilt as my kind of quilt that's closest to me. And then I have a 40-degree Fahrenheit synthetic quilt that I'm gonna be putting on top of that. And that quilt combination should be able to get me down to about minus 25 degrees Celsius. What's interesting with this sleep system is that it uses a lot of summer gear. So I'm using a 3-season sleeping pad, I'm using a 3-season quilt, and then I'm just adding things to it. And with adding the foam pad and then the synthetic top quilt, it doesn't end up being that big of an investment in order to sleep comfortably in the wintertime down to pretty low temperatures. And I'm just assuming that I'm gonna sleep warm comfortably. That's just based on some experience. It might get colder than I expected. The system might sleep colder than I expected, especially the sleeping pad that I'm using is not very warm. I've never used it in wintertime before, but I'll check in tomorrow morning and let you guys know how it all sorted out. And then my winter camp clothing, a bunch of it is in here. I'm gonna get changed into it after I eat dinner. Is pretty inexpensive as well. I'm wearing a Decathlon down jacket right now. This is a super warm winter jacket and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And a lot of my winter camp clothing is very inexpensive. I'll post a link where I go over all of my winter camp clothing in the video description. So while all of the really fancy winter camping gear that I've kind of talked about in past videos is really nice to have, it's usually lighter, it usually has a bunch of features that make things a little bit easier and more comfortable while you're out there. You can easily winter camp in cold temperatures using 3-season gear that you just supplement with some additional items. I have my meal rehydrating in my koozie right here. I'm gonna wait another 5 minutes before that and then I'm gonna eat it up and then head to bed. I forgot the most important item of all, the pink titanium spoon. This thing's gonna keep you warm at night if the sleep system doesn't, so always make sure to have this with you and keep it inside your quilt or sleeping bag while you're going to bed. This is a really nice spot. Looking forward to just eating dinner, enjoying these views. I'll check in with you guys in the morning. Something I forgot to mention with my sleep system is this hood from Enlightened Equipment. This is the Tord Apex hood. Pretty much essential if you're going to be using quilts for very cold weather camping. What's nice about this is it's made with synthetic material, and because you're exhaling so much moisture of your breath, that kind of accumulates around your head. So it's good to have a synthetic hood for that. Down would start absorbing moisture a little bit more. It's kind of crazy. It's only 7 p.m. and it's already down to minus 25 degrees Celsius. So tonight could get pretty interesting and spicy. I'm hoping it doesn't get much colder than that. If it starts getting down to minus 30, I'm going to start getting uncomfortable. Anything less than that, it's going to be pretty dangerous. Good morning. It is finally starting to warm up. That was a pretty miserable sleep. And the reason last night was so uncomfortable is twofold. First of all, it got really cold. Even right now, it's minus 18 degrees Celsius in the morning time. Last night, it started approaching minus 30. I think it got down to about minus 28 degrees Celsius. So a lot colder than I thought it was gonna get, even at the extreme end. And because of that, I didn't have enough gear in order to stay very comfortable. I ended up moving my foam pad to the top of the sleeping pad. Usually I like it underneath just for comfort, but it's a lot warmer when you put it on top of the sleeping pad. And that's where the weak point of the system really came into play. The X-Lite just isn't a warm enough sleeping pad for those kind of conditions. If I had the X-Therm, I probably would have been fine. If I wanted to use the X-Lite but supplement it with some more budget-friendly options and getting a second sleeping pad just for wintertime, I probably would have just had to stack more and more foam, which foam isn't the heaviest, but it's also quite bulky and a pain to carry up the mountain. I was nice and toasty up top, which is really good. That's partly because I did put on my down pants and my down jacket, so I did have some extra insulation. Usually I like to keep those as backup, but because I was losing so much heat to the ground, I put them on just to kind of try and mitigate that a little bit. And I mentioned you guys the video where I go over my camp clothes. There's a couple new ones that I picked up for this year. One of them is these down pants that I'm wearing. These are made by Nature Hike. They're just a little bit loftier and warmer than the ones I had last year. And then I also picked up a down mid layer. So this is the Ultra Alpine by Patagonia. It's just a sweater. It's probably the lightest down sweater that I've ever encountered. There's no zippers. It's just very minimal. Uses very high power fill, 7-denier fabric. So it's very lightweight, 150 grams for something that's extremely warm. And this is quickly becoming my favorite mid layer for when I'm around camp. Fleeces are really nice for mid layers. They're inexpensive. They do keep you warm. But compared to some of the fleeces that I have, this Patagonia down just keeps me probably 2 times as warm as those. So for me, the weight and then the warmth is definitely worth bringing this on the trip and the expense. I'm gonna be getting all packed up here soon. You may notice my pack. This is the Waymark Light pack. So it's a 45 liter pack. I think I forget the exact volume, but it's a great pack for these kind of missions because it can hold a lot of stuff. It carries weight phenomenally. I didn't have a ton of weight on this trip, but if I did, I've carried up to 40 pounds in this and it's been very comfortable. The one thing that it's not great for is if you're on more technical winter trips, it doesn't have a ton of straps on there. So if I did need to take my skis and strap them to my pack for any sort of purpose, then I wouldn't be able to do that easily with this pack. But great for kind of easier, lightweight winter trips, and definitely one of my favorite packs for shoulder season in fall and springtime. The Ultralight performed pretty well last night. It snowed a little bit, so you can see a little bit of snow loading on there, not a ton. And it performed basically as well as I expected it to. It's not made for winter temperatures, but if you do need to use it in the wintertime, it's going to do pretty well. Nothing kind of snapped or broke as far as Dynamo working in the cold. I've heard Dynamo works pretty well in the cold, so that was expected. And the only thing that I'd really probably change about it is that the size is definitely not big enough for winter trips. I like having a bit more space in order to move around and store things while I'm in winter conditions, especially if I am changing inside my tent. As promised, go check out some really cool and innovative gear that I've discovered up in the corner there. A lot of gear really surprised me on this list, and I don't really often get surprised.